Hello everyone, welcome back again to the Empty Space in Between podcast.
Starting on people.
It's an Agony Aunt. It's Agony Aunt part 2, baby!
Part 2, baby!
Is the lack of financial support one of the biggest problems PhD researchers face?
I think we were discussing it before, when I've told them I'm doing a PhD and what I'm earning, like close mates and that, you can't quite get their head around why I'm doing it.
I am struggling, right, to stay motivated, focused and productive.
Oh, lads!
Horrible. What are some tips for keeping the PhD work moving?
Fuck knows, lads. I'm fucking stalling like fuck me. Lad, if I was a car, lad, I'm on the M57 on the hard shoulder, lad, in an O2 fizzer, lad, fucking trying to get it going again.
It's so
lads.
hard to stay motivated. Hello everyone, welcome back again to the Empty Space in Between podcast.
Starting on people.
Once again from one of our favourite places in Liverpool, the Ship and Mitre. This week I've actually diverted from a Pilsner Urquell. I have a stout, as Sam put it, what the fuck is that?
It looked like Guinness, lad.
Wait, it's a stout, so a Guinness is a stout.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Oh, I had no idea.
This is just a different, it's a vanilla stout by, piss.
It's a vanilla stout by piss. What it fucking looks like, lad. It's like fucking...
Lad, if your piss looks like that, you need to go to the doctors. But yeah, so
Lad, I thought it was Guinness, lad, when it got poured. I was like,
no,
the fuck's he drinking?
If you poured a Guinness in that glass, I'd have been scared, me.
Do you not like Guinness?
Yeah, but you've got to be in a proper Guinness class and snob me. I don't even know why, I just am.
I had Guinness once, lad. Me dad drinks Guinness and he got it out through the week. Well, not through the week, a few months ago now. Never tasted it in my life. I was like, go ahead, I'll have a little bit. Fucking gross,
not for
lad.
you.
It's gross, lad.
Guinness is
disgusting.
the best beer.
It's not a beer, is it? You said it's a stout.
What's a stout? It's the best.
What's a stout, though, when it's at home?
It's something to do with, again, I probably should know the difference between this, considering I'm a fucking...
What am I drinking, Belly?
Shipyard Pale Ale.
Shipyard Pale Ale, Portland, Maine, USA.
It's not made, I don't think it's made in the USA.
Ship and Mitre chatting shit then.
I'm pretty sure that's made somewhere, I could be wrong.
It's made in Scunthorpe.
But it's like Madry. It's like brewed in the UK, even though they tout it as this fucking beer from Madrid.
Is it?
Yeah. Did I tell you the story about that?
I was in Spain the other week drinking it, thinking I was fucking PR getting Spanish beverage.
I was in Gran Canaria and I was at the hotel. It was when I went over for a summer school thing, and it was basically the Sunday before we all started on the Monday. So I hadn't met anyone yet. I was basically just rolling around on. So
I remember you texting us saying like I'm just on my bill in the sports bar.
So the first day, this is before the story, I got proper spotted out because, like, as I say, Las Palmas is a Spanish city. So I was rolling round in a bucket hat, like an Oasis top, like me swim shorts and
you
slides.
didn't have a little man bag on.
And a little man bag.
Like you had a fezzy,
yeah, lad. But everyone just was walking around in like pants and shoes.
Yeah, like
it's
working week, lad. You're like on holiday.
Yeah, I was on holiday walking around. I was going, yeah, I'm out of place here. But yeah, so in the night I was in the hotel.
Is there no tourists there then, really?
Not really. Like there is, but it's a different kind of tourism. Like you can go and see all the volcanic stuff in the north and that. So I was in the hotel and I was speaking to the bartender, just like I was chilling in the hotel, and I was like, we got talking about beers because I didn't know Mao was Spanish. You answer the beer Mao, Mahou.
I thought that was like a famous emperor, Mao.
Well, that's just by seeing Mao, I thought it was like Chinese.
That's what it's named after, then, isn't it?
No,
who's Mao, lad?
I don't fucking know.
Okay.
I do not have that level.
Hey, fuck you, Sam.
I don't know who the Prime Minister was in the UK like 30 years ago. Anyway, so I was speaking to him. I was like, "Yeah, there's a Spanish beer taking over the UK." Like, I was like, "It's this beer called Madrid. It's not been out long." And this bartender genuinely looked me in the eyes. I was staying in like a nice 4-star hotel thing. Yeah. Did you get proper good service? He went, "What the fuck are you on about?" He was like,
didn't know what it was.
He was like, "There's no Spanish beer called Madrid." And I went, "What?" And he went, "Yeah, nah, not a thing that." I went, "What?" So I googled it. Yeah, it turns out it's brewed in like Sheffield or somewhere daft like that.
Lads, what was I going to say?
I was like, wow.
It's like I seen Keith Lemon, lads, on Celebrity Juice saying that Gino De Campo's from Leeds. And he's not actually Italian.
That's the best back and forth.
Because he knows too much about the... He said, you're from Leeds, you.
he says
don't even look Italian.
He says he sounds like he's from Leeds and not from Italy.
Lad, yeah, I was talking about this with someone the other day, lad. Why do, especially in this city, beers have like phases?
What do you mean?
Like Moretti has its like day, and everyone go, you go out with your mate and it's like bottle of Moretti.
It is weird,
please.
like because Peroni was the
Peroni, lad.
Was the beer of
Corona
choice.
had its little phase.
But you know what it is? It's very much a Liverpool thing that like.
Lad, Desperado.
But not even.
Where did they come from?
Move it, but where'd they go? No one drinks it
Because it
anymore.
tastes like piss, lad. That's why.
I love Desperados.
Oh, lad, it's like limey tequila, lad.
Beer. But like that's
I've got an itchy nose. Hold on.
It's very much like a Liverpool thing that like if having the whole city just jumps on something and it's like a trend in Liverpool and it's like dead different from everywhere else and this place just does its own thing.
When I first started drinking, lad, it was Desperado. When I was like 16, 17, 18, lad, it was like everyone was on it. You went out anyway, lad, like get a crate of Desperados, lad. Yeah. And like, but now looking back, I would never buy one, lad, because they taste like piss.
I quite like them, mate.
They're horrible, lad, and you get the lime with them. It just makes the drink even worse when you push it in.
Lad, that's
I got my finger stuck in a bottle once.
Of course you did.
Pushing a lime in.
Anyway.
Pushed it in dead hard, lads, and it just like jammed in the top. What the fuck?
Anyway, back onto sensible conversations. Episode 10. This is our 10th main episode that we've recorded. So we've been in your ears for at least 12 weeks.
That deserves a little fake round of applause. I'm going to put one in, man.
Yeah. No, but yeah, so again, thanks for sticking with us. To 10 episodes, we've got a lot coming.
It's been good fun, man.
It's been a laugh, like getting to know the process, doing it. Speaking to people who have genuine questions and just laughing at the people who just say absolutely
gradually
nonsense.
Got better at it as well. Like
editing
everything audio. Like at the start, man, we had no literally idea. Off the street saying let's do a podcast. We had no idea how to do it. No,
man. Not a clue. But
still don't really know. But
so the first 10 of many, I think is the thing. And what we're doing today is, as we said a few weeks ago, is on the episodes that are divisible by 5. It's an Agony Aunt. It's Agony Aunt Part 2, baby.
Part 2, baby.
Woo! Let's go, babe.
Explain to the people then, Belly. Give us some minds, lads. What is Agony Aunts, lads? What are we trying to do? Just until it's baked into the psyche of these listeners.
The listeners, man. So the Agony Aunt is we're stealing the traditional type of format where people write in. We're yet to have people write in, but that'll come soon, hopefully, once we get a few more lovely people giving us their eyes and their ears. So what we do is we scour the internet looking for the problems of the PhD and other academics or other people with questions about academia, research, science, anything really, anything that sounds vaguely interesting.
Anyone with an inquiry, man, that needs answering. And
then what we do is, because we are so vain, is then we take them questions and we give our opinions because we think they matter loads.
Yeah, no, because they do matter loads. Me and Belly are highly equipped to give these answers, man. Anyone who says anything otherwise is just simply wrong.
And you're a fool.
You're a fool, man.
You're a fool and you're a liar.
Me and Belly are geniuses, man. I mean, we are.
As it says in the bio, mate, we're highly educated.
We've both read the Bible.
We just don't remember much of it, lad, do we?
No, we don't remember much of it. We've both read the Bible, so we know.
Have you actually read the Bible?
No.
No, I was about to say even.
The only bit of the Bible I've read, lad, is when my teacher used to read it to me in school.
Yeah.
And you'd just be sitting there going,
I don't think I ever read it. But no. Yeah, so...
most read book ever, lad, the Bible.
Oh, that makes sense. So they put it in every hotel room ever. So you've got nothing else to do.
Lad, you know, till you get an hotel, first thing I do, the bedside table, I go like, bang.
Bible. Yeah, I always check if there's one there, just for a laugh.
Bible as subscribed by Luke and John. Brilliant. If I'm bored tomorrow night, I'll give that a quick flick.
Get in after a long graft on the town, on the bevies, I'll get the Bible out. I need to repent some sins.
Wasn't proud about what I did there.
Yeah, as we said, we're going to take it in turns with these Agony Aunts. So, Sam asked the questions in the first one. Now it's my turn. So I've done some digging on the internet, on the Twitters.
So it's my turn to answer.
On the Reddit. So I've got the questions now. I'm going to throw them to Sam.
I've not seen any of these. Like, the first time we did it, we didn't show Brian them at all, but I sort of said, like, you know, we're going to go down this because we were creating it. I've literally seen nothing.
Nada.
So if I laugh when I'm not meant to laugh, you know,
try again?
Even Siri doesn't know. Even she doesn't know.
Why is that happening, man? My watch, man. I hate this Apple Watch, man. You know what? Screw this Apple Watch.
You're taking it off?
You know what? I'm doing it on the pod.
Whoa.
It pisses me off.
Live manoeuvres.
I only do it you wear it for the gym, man. Anyway.
Just leave it on to make so people know you go to the gym.
People know. Yeah, I haven't seen any of these, have I?
No, you haven't.
So forgive me for uneducated answers.
Yeah, you'll do what I did the other week. You'll come back in 3 weeks and go, I've got the best answer for fucking...
Yeah, we did a podcast on Lecky cars and Belly come in going, think about this, lad. And I was like, for about 10 seconds I was looking at him like, I have no idea what you're going on about, lad. He went, last week's episode, lad, remember? I was like, oh yeah, go ahead.
So, should we get into it?
Go on then, let's go.
First one? The first one, I found this and it was on the... So the first three, I think, are taken from a Twitter account called the PhD Place.
The PhD Place?
Yes, they were anonymous questions.
I've seen that.
They were anonymous questions put on there, so I thought, you know what? They're getting nabbed.
They're getting nabbed.
Getting straight. Because you haven't let us know. So yeah, so there's another arm and element to Agony Aunt that we didn't quite... We want you to get in touch with us. Let us know. Well, we want to answer your questions or react to your funny stories, so your academic confessions. Have you cheated in the past? Have you done something funny in a lecture?
Don't be a rat and share them.
Yeah, share the love, man, so then we can all experience your experience.
Have you cheated ever?
I think I did at GCSE once.
Ryan, I know Ryan's cheated. He's just lying to me now.
When?
Shut up, sir. I've probably cheated. If you can cheat, you will, won't you?
Like, in my French speaking ones, like, basically what I used to do is just type it all in English into Google Translate, get the French thing, write the French thing down, then I'd give the French essay to my French teacher, and then she'd correct all the mistakes Google Translate made, and I'd hand that in.
Why is French a vessel for cheating, man?
Because no one can be asked. Like with the English, man, we just can't be asked doing that.
Right, we'll start this right now after this story. I got an F in French. So the only GCSE I failed, man.
You gotta call out the voice crack.
Which?
You then. The man.
Well, the bad throat, lads, when you're just going. And in the French writing exam, we were in the fucking, like, whatever it was called, the exam room or whatever. And I wrote up my essay off Google Translate on my phone on notes. You weren't allowed any devices, you had to do it, you know, by hand. And I had my phone on me. But obviously they checked you for phones, so I strapped it in my underpants, lad, against the elastic, lad. So then I got in the class, lad, and I shivved under the table a little bit, and then lad, I'm not messing, I pulled my zipper down and went in through my zipper, lad, and slid the phone out my zipper, so it was like half hanging out my zipper, lad. And then I'm like that on notes, and I like just leant over loads, lad, and I was writing, and I was just copying me notes, lad, and I still failed. So I don't know what the fuck Google Translate told me, lad.
You are the worst cheat ever.
I still got an F, lad.
Worst cheat in the world.
And then I went into my French speaking exam, lad, and I looked directly at my teacher. And you used to get recorded, didn't you?
Yeah.
And like, it'd be like this, you know, it's a half an hour exam, and there was an examiner, which is my teacher, and an invigilator watching, making sure we don't cheat. And then she pressed play, and she looked at me with this invigilator who's got nothing to do with us. You know what I mean? And she's thinking like, you know, want a good example from me kids here. And she went like, right, you know, what's your name in French? And I just went, Je m'appelle Sam. And she went, okay, went on to the next question, like, you know, what activities do you like to do? Lad, I just looked at her and went, I play football. And she went, in French, Sam. I just went, I don't know any French, mate. Been doing it for 3 years. And the invigilator, lads, half an hour of that pain, lads. Just going, I don't know.
At this point, you just
give up on French, lads. I felt like just saying, why are we going through this? And in the end, she just went like, that's enough, and like paused it. And I just felt like I'd let the world down, lads.
But well, you're here.
I'm here.
You're doing a PhD, man. Is what it is.
Let's end these questions.
What we were saying. So the first question, taking anonymous question or anonymous statement type thing from the PhD Place. So, is the lack of financial support one of the biggest problems PhD researchers face?
I mean, depends what you define as a problem. I'd say the finances behind. Listen, the finance behind a PhD, people who don't know, PhDs don't get taxed. You get your PhD stipend.
It's a bursary, in it, basically.
It's a bursary, so you get your stipend, whatever and they differ depending on what PhD you're doing, who you're funded by. It could be the minimum, what's the minimum these days? 17k? Is it with inflation? 16k?
Nah.
What do we get per
is
year?
it stipend or just...
Stipend, what's the minimum stipend?
I'm on the minimum stipend, so...
Same, so
let me tell you now. Oh, we're doing maths on the fly here,
we're doing maths on the fly.
17 and a half-ish.
Yeah, I know. So it's about 17.5 grand the minimum. And it can go up to, like, I've seen some getting advertised like a 20 grand PhD.
Yeah.
Only in private industry.
Oh, of course, yeah.
So someone offering a higher wage, you're doing a PhD through a private company. The finances are a problem, but, and this sounds like I'm not blaming, like, we do need more finance. I have complained about it before, like it's out of order, that like we're doing all, and it's a lot of work, a PhD, lads, and then at the end of the month to only get, you know, your pay packet with 1,400 quid in, and it's like, is that what it would work out per month, is it? 1,400?
1,450, 1,470, something like that.
You do look at other people who haven't gone down a PhD route, and you think, like, you know, why are you doing this? But everyone who's done a PhD goes in knowing
that's the game. That's the game.
And I'm not saying that's right, but it's not like anyone's entered a PhD and then we're like, well, what the fuck, 1,400 quid this month? I thought I was getting 4 grand. Like, no one's ever done that. I think it puts a lot of people off, Belly. I think
I agree.
I've heard of a lot of people, I think we were discussing it before, who, when I've told them I'm doing a PhD and what I'm earning, like close mates and that, they can't quite get their heads around why I'm doing it.
People go to me, they go, "Are you still in uni?" I'm like, "Yeah," and then I'll tell them, and they're like, "Is that it?" But then also, I know people who work in other jobs. I say they work in law as a paralegal, and they earn about the same as us.
It is.
So it's like, is it? So basically, we earn. I think it's if we were on 20 odd K.
This is what
if we were going to get taxed.
I mean, you got to look at it from, you know, the wider community. Are we putting off people who are potentially, you know, giving into this conversation we had the weekend on the brain drain? Are we putting people off getting involved in academia, in law, because they know, well, I can just go down another route. It might not be what I want to do. It might not be my passion, but I'll get 30k, I'll get 40k, and like, you know, we should really, and I think PhDs should be on. I mean, I think putting a young doctor on 40k straight away, or I want to be doctor, they could lose sight of what they're doing.
Yes,
maybe,
if you say to a PhD, but then here's the issue: if you said to people, if you do a PhD program and your stipend's 40k a year, you'll get people doing a PhD
for 40k
who don't want to do a PhD,
and then they're not the best balanced people to do one.
So I get it, because it's one.
But the flip of that, Belly, is you shouldn't rely on someone's passion either. It shouldn't just be.
No, that's what I'm trying to say.
You're here because you love it, so we'll take advantage of you and throw you pennies. Yeah. You know what I mean? It's a hard one to traverse.
It's still not pennies.
No, it's not pennies, but it's not a lot, Belly.
So referring to the question, I do think it is an issue, but do I think is it the biggest issue PhD?
Depends what did he mean by, I mean, obviously
we'll biggest know. Problem a PhD
that's research. Stop entry points or make people quit. What's the issue that they're talking about?
That is literally, that was the...
Well, if you're talking about what makes people quit, I don't think the finances
it's the workload.
I think it'll be the workload, the motivation dwindles. People over 4 years can change a lot.
Yeah, people, like you're not necessarily the same.
Yeah, what people want to do at 21,
desire.
22, 23 is not what they might want to do at 25, 26. People drop out. Barrier to entry, I think it could be a big one, because I think people who genuinely do think about doing research and want a career in it, I think maybe when they look, especially if they've come from maybe more economically deprived areas, you know, they want to start earning money. You know what I mean? Like they've got this degree, whether it be maths, law, whatever it is. You know, they've done all this hard work, and if for someone to just offer the minimum wage, it's not worth it. They're like, although I love research, I'm just not prepared to do it.
This is, and I suppose again it depends on perspective, because like, say if you're like kind of us, where we came from undergrad and masters, and then we've gone from having to pay for education to getting paid
It feels decent.
So so for like I'm like
we're happy. Yeah,
I'm happy. I'm kind of happy with the money because
same.
I kind of like academia anyway, so I'm kind of getting paid to.
I know what you mean. Like it what for us. We've been at uni our whole lives since we left school. Ryan had 1 year out, but pretty much been at uni, and we were paying the whole time to be there.
Yeah.
So as soon as it wasn't that, it felt good.
And then but then the flip side, I think people who want to do a PhD later in life, I think it probably is the biggest problem because
they're used to a wage.
Yeah, like you're used to a certain way of living, and also when you get older, it's not so much even a certain way of living. It's just the natural kind of responsibility that come with getting older. Like you've got bills to pay.
If you've got 2 kids and you're on 35k, you're not going to drop to 17, man.
It's not happening.
Because it's the welfare of your own children. You got to think about more. But I think like there's certain things people don't know about PhDs, which like might put people out. Like you can't get a mortgage on a PhD.
But that's the thing, because like I'm saving at the minute, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And even you can't get one as a PhD because they'll go, no, you're a student. And even as a postdoc, it's the same kind of issue where it's, you're on temporary money. But now we're getting into a whole other world of questions.
But no, it's a good. But I think it's something that needs addressing because there's a lot of other young people who can get mortgage. I mean, getting a mortgage, that's another, in this climate, it's rock hard. But forget about that argument. There's people who are on normal jobs, and because it's a full-time contract,
even if it's potentially the same money take home, they can potentially get other things because it's seen as a
full-time work. But then there's benefits you get from being a PhD student, which they don't get, like freedom to work when you want, freedom to complete things at night, rather. If as a PhD, if you want to work 5 p.m. to 2 a.m. and spend your morning going doing whatever, like you can. No one's gonna cry at you as long as you're doing your work and your research is good. You can complete your work when you want to complete your work.
I saw a nice quote from a researcher about that, and they were basically saying like, look, as a researcher, we have to kind of accept we're not going to get the same money as industry, but what you've got to do is make the most of the freedom you get and spend the freedom with
other things,
doing things that like people in industry can't do, type thing.
In your career, creating a profile, doing whatever you want to do.
So to bring it back then, close this kind of question off, is the lack of financial support one of the biggest problems for PhD researchers? I think it depends
on entry point,
but then again, I think it depends on perspective.
Do you want
to say what it is? Financial support, a big one for me, which gives me the fear, is that it runs out before, like the amount of work you can be expected to do. You can, like, getting it done in your finance period can be impossible. Is basically no one finishes a PhD really
under the finance
whilst you're still getting paid, so you have to kind of continue it afterwards.
I think
and that can be quite a daunting.
4 years and 3 years. Everyone's usually on 3 years, and the percentage of people who probably complete within 3 years is minimal.
No, and I reckon mine's on my kind of path. It's probably going to take me about 3 to 4 months, maybe, after me money runs out. I don't want it to, but that's what I'm kind of planning for. Because
and you can't, that's life, man. You know what I mean? And
so then that's scary, I suppose, from the financial point. So you've got the entry point, but then also you've got kind of the exit point where it's a scary end, because you can be left in this kind of no man's land where you don't have the qualification, but you've got to finish it. You're over 3 years in, and you've got to try and find other sources of money and stuff.
I think entry point's a big put off. You're right. Entry point's a big put off. People see the minimum wage that a PhD students get, and as I say, I think if you've come from a more deprived area where money, it might not be a put off for someone who's got a wealthy family and can, get mummy or daddy to fund them while they're doing a PhD. But if you come from a deprived area and you haven't got that backing, and someone's only offering you minimum wage, and because of your qualifications you could possibly get 30, 40, 50, whatever, it's hard to sell to someone, and I get it. But as you say, then I think to improve the finances in a PhD, the monthly stipend probably could be better, but I think it should, rather than a standard of 3 years, it should be a standard of 4 and 5. I think 4 to 5 years is it's a lot of work for a lot of people to do, man, and in 3 years, but anyway. And
also it kind of highlights a bigger problem that there's not enough money being paid out to everyone in general, innit? But so is the lack of financial support one of the biggest problems? Depends, but it can really be a big stifler.
Yeah.
Should we move on to the next one?
Belter, let's do question 2. Let me see what I can give to this
Again,
next question.
Another anonymous question from the PhD place. So, my supervisor tells me I should write for online blogs, articles, and write book chapters, attend conferences, that type of guff.
Yeah.
None of these pay me, and some of them even cost me money to do.
Yeah.
Why should I bother?
I mean, I'm sort of... It depends. All of these are individualistic. Like, it depends who you are. I'd say, I was aiming to write a blog a few months ago. I wanted to get into it. I never got around to it because other things were taking up my time. And you've got to prioritise things in a PhD. Like, you know, I've got a paper to write. I've got results to analyse. I've got a workshop to host, for example. And you need to write a 200-page blog. Or 200-word blog or fund. You know, it might not seem like a lot,
but it is though.
But it's
an hour out your day.
Yeah,
max, minimum. Sorry.
The same with the conferences. It's like, you know, I've attended some conferences. I've not really went out my way to go to like 7 conferences a year, which you see some PhDs do, and I don't think you have either. You know what I mean? My
supervisors kind of push. We push journal. Like, we aim for journal submissions rather than
conference
submissions.
Yeah.
So like, my aim has never been to write and present a conference paper type thing, but as you say, I know people who their other strategy for the PhD is writing conference papers and attending conferences,
and that's a good point. I think it depends on who you are. If you are not that worried, so I think there's always a conflict between like what your supervisory team wants and what your supervisor wants and what you want for yourself. It can sometimes come into play.
But then I think go on.
I was going to say, I think if you want to go to conferences and you want to do blogs, and that's a big, you know, you want to maybe like put your work on the public face,
or do a podcast,
go and do it. But if you're someone who's thinking, you know what, those like public facing things aren't really me, you know, there's something that you're going to be obliged to do. You're going to have to do them.
Yeah.
And then there'll be another path for you somewhere. You might just prefer publishing papers, as you say. And whatever your goal is, whatever your target is, as long as it's not like not doing any work, and as long as you're doing your work,
yeah. If your target in life is to just sit there and do notes,
then I'd say have the discussion with your supervisor and go, listen, I'm not that interested in blogging. Maybe there's a capacity for you to do 1 or 2 because your supervisor, you might be able to appease them whilst not doing loads because it's not what you want to do. Tell them what you want to focus on, whether it be getting a paper out, whether it be going to a conference. And tell them, listen, I'm not that interested in that public facing stuff. 1, it doesn't pay me, which is what they mentioned, which is a fair comment. Like, I've got to take a day out and pay for myself. And your supervisor might argue, oh, well, it's your career. You've got to brand yourself. You've got to do that. It's up to you. You know what I mean?
Because I think at the end of the day, a lot of that is it's the name of the game in academia. You've got to write. I think blogs is a tough one to kind of justify, because then that is very much it's a saturated point. It's like doing a podcast. It's like if you enjoy it, good, and you're passionate about it. If you don't, I don't really see where, because if you're just doing it for just turning handles, there are other things you can be doing to turn handles that'll get you further. Articles and conferences, they're kind of the name of the game.
Yeah, there's ones you can't get out of.
Like,
you're going to have to do them.
Well, I think there's a question on it, but like, that is your measure of success.
Yeah.
Your papers, your conferences, and your citations. So you kind of have to, in some aspects.
You're going to have to play the game a little bit on them ones.
Yeah, you're going to have to. But, I think that's a very good point you made there. Your PhD is your project. You should be able to speak to your supervisor.
That dialogue should be there for you to say, I'm not that interested in X, Y, Z.
Like, I'm quite fortunate. I have a really good supervisory team. So, like, I speak to them all the time about kind of what I want to do and the direction, and then it's kind of aligned again with kind of what, because I've been under their tutelage, as it were, since kind of like end of undergrad and master's level.
Them well as well.
So, I think we kind of
shout out Ivan and Sandra.
But it's kind of nice, because I think the reason we work kind of well together as a supervisory team is like, I chose to go with them, and vice versa. They were happy for me to apply with them because of we had similar the aims and like direction in ways
and
to do
respect
it.
For each other, like, you know.
Yeah.
And I think if they come to you and said, like, Ryan, we really want you to do this conference, you'd do it. But if they come to you again and say, we want you to do this one as well, and like you'd feel comfortable going, listen, I've done, I just don't want to do that.
Or like that is just too much.
It's just not of interest to me. Like I've presented it now, it's not even as too much work. It might just not be of interest to you, and if it's not compulsory, it's not. Maybe it's not a party. Like so, for example,
it's not part of the games.
Yeah, so I've got to attend certain conferences because it was they put on by the department or me funder, and I've got to present at them or talk at them. I've got to do them. I can't get out of them. But if it's just like opt in, opt out, submit, you can't really get forced to do it either way. It's up to you. You know what I mean? Yeah. It's, I have a level of respect for your supervisors. They've put all this work into you. They expect you to fill out some roles and attend some conferences and do your baseline level of obligations. But if this person feels like they're getting pushed to do all sorts that they're just not interested in, they're well within the rights to say, listen, these just aren't things I want to do with my PhD.
Yeah. And just
that's my take on it, lad. It's just got to be a dialogue between them and the supervisors.
And like, why should you bother? A lot of it you need to bother because it's the game.
It's the game, yeah.
You should only really bother about what you enjoy doing and what you want to do. And
don't write blogs if you hate writing blogs. Do the ones you're obliged to do, whether it be one for you, maybe once a month for a funder or once a year. If that's not what you want to do, fucking stop writing blogs. Seems fucking pointless doing it if you don't like doing it.
And no one's going to read it because you'll be able to tell reading it going, this person
this person hates it, lads, yeah. Like, if you don't want to fucking do a blog, please don't do a fucking blog.
Yeah.
I won't read it anyway.
I don't read blogs much anyway. But yeah, I think that was a nice way to round that off. So it's
speak to your supervisor, will you?
Yeah.
Jeez.
Do what you feel comfortable with your PhD.
You're gonna die one day. I've said this loads. Stop fucking about.
Make sure you still do what you have to do.
Nah, even that. Fuck everything, man. Fuck it.
Right, should we just pack up then? Right.
You do what you want to
do. Next question. Question 3.
Go ahead.
Is again, this will be the third and the last one from the PhD place.
Okay.
Anonymous question. I'm giving my first ever talk at a conference tomorrow with around 100 people in attendance, and I'm feeling very nervous, Sam. What are some tips for boosting confidence around public speaking?
Okay.
This person's asking you, mate.
Asking me? Did you say Sam?
I was winding you up.
Oh, right. Hey, how the hell does he know?
How do you know?
Listen, me and Ryan went to John Moore's, and at John Moore's, every year, a couple of times a year, you're forced to public speak. And that's one thing I'd take from our degrees, which I thought was class, is pretty much every other module you've done a project, and like 5% of the mark you had to get up and present it.
And just say...
And the whole point of it, when we spoke to like the program leader, Ian, he said like, they want to develop you as a person. They don't want you to just be this like bookworm essentially that can't communicate. And I think public speaking is half in you, half not. I think there's some people who you just look at and they public speak and you think like they just speak really well, and like they seem to have banter, they seem to get results across class, they seem to be really engaging. And you're going to have some people who just always will struggle. Now, that doesn't mean there isn't things you can do to improve yourself if you are one of those people struggling and turn yourself into a great speaker. I'm not sure I'm equipped to talk on this, but like, I like to think I'm an okay speaker. I've given quite a few talks. I think I do quite well at them. I've never been a nervous, like, I've seen some people crumble, man. So
it's horrible to watch, innit?
Oh, lads, in mine and Ryan's.
Because don't you just feel dead snide?
Lads, to be fair, I was laughing at a lot of them.
No, like sometimes it is quite funny.
Lads,
but you do laugh when it's nervous. But like, what's bad? Sorry.
Go on, lads.
Like, especially when we've seen people crumble, we know the type of work it takes. But they've done before they've stood up and you sat there just crumble.
I've not seen it so much at PhD level and professors and above. They're so used to it.
Undergrad.
But at undergrad, at the end of your undergrad degree at John Moore's in maths, you had to do your dissertation, blah, 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 research project. And then there's this big poster day that they put on.
They basically hold a mini conference as like
as
like an idea of like kind of what it's like in academic life to present an academic poster.
And it's like a fake conference, and you have the poster morning where everyone's got the posters on billboards and everyone's walking around and you get questions, and then another, I can't remember if it's the afternoon or whatever, you go into these like presentations and you get 3 minutes in like a proper auditorium, big stadium speech style, and the lecturer hits a gong, and then you have to talk about your project.
And you get 3 minutes.
And lad, I witnessed out of about 50 kids on the course, a good 10 of them crumbled, and about 3 of them capitulated completely, lads. There was a few people, obviously not mentioning names, who got up and went like, in today, and then just silence, lads, and like couldn't get the words out, man. And you're like, like they've put all this work in, man,
and it's just froze.
Speak. And then the gong would go and they hadn't said a word, lads, and it was just like,
no way.
But so the question is, how can you avoid being one of them people?
John, for me, it's practice. It's kind of what you said there. I mean, I know this doesn't kind of help this person, but just get little groups of people who you're comfortable with
and speak to them,
and give the same talk what you're about to do to the people you're happy speaking in front of, and then see what happens.
Maybe there's a colleague you're comfortable with. So at undergrad level, for example, me and my close mates, we got in like a little room together and did our talks to each other. Like now that I'm at PhD level, sometimes I'll say to me, like, my girlfriend, like, can I present this to you?
Yeah.
And she'll listen, and she doesn't know in the bar, but she'll go, like, that you're a bit ropey there.
Yeah.
But you know what? This might be like controversial advice, this now, but I've always felt that this is the advice. Some people prepare presentations, and it works for some, and they recite and they learn in their heads everything they're gonna say, and it's almost like a book library in their head, like that's not to say that. I think that sets you up for disaster. You need to prepare, but when you over prepare and you've got like a library of words that you want to spit out, as soon as that word doesn't come up, that point that you didn't want to get to,
the next word will
never come. It never comes, because, and I've seen like, people who I was close with on undergrad prepare to that level of readiness, and because they forgot a point, the whole library of things that they wants to say dissipates beneath them, because they rely, it's like a chain, they relied on that in their head to pull up on the next ones. So prepare, understand each slide, but don't be like nailing, unless it really works for you. My personal experiences, I learn each slide what it says, and then whatever comes out on the day. I trust my own ability in my knowledge of my own material to be able to talk on the spot about it. I never recite like I'm going to open up with, welcome everyone, today it's different every time, but it works for me, because I feel like if I over prepare to the point where I know exactly what I'm going to say, I'm setting myself up for a fucking problem.
You know what, I like second that, is I've done talks where I've prepared it word for word, and then I'll stutter on a little thing.
Lad, it happens.
And then, instead of remembering the talk, you're remembering the next word. And then by the time you finally get to the next word, you forgot the rest of the talk, because you've, like, your whole kind of mental capacity shifted into this one, oh my God, how do I go over this stumbling block?
That's it, lad.
So I suppose another good tip then, that's just come, is like, be confident with what you're presenting work-wise. So if you know it, like, down to the T, everything you're presenting,
you don't need to learn it.
Presenting's not necessarily then a presentation. It's just basically talking about the work you've done in a way you talk to everyone.
You only need to learn it line for line what you're saying if you don't get it that well.
Yeah.
If you understand what's going on, you don't have to go over it 1,000 times. If I'm doing a presentation now, I'll go over it the night before for half an hour.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. Okay, I've got it. You know what I mean? And then, like, you might be thinking, like, oh, you're hard. You know what I mean? You can just, like, that's not good for me. I'm dead nervous. As far as, like, the anxiety goes before a presentation, a bit of nerves is good. If you're not nervous, you're not alive, man. Like, you should be a bit, like, because it'll keep you on your toes. It keeps you performing. If you're too relaxed, you'll forget to say something. And
also, speaking in front of potentially hundreds of people is not a normal thing to do. So of course, nerves is going to be a
factor.
So I think accepting that that's a normal part of that process is like a good thing to have, and be like, right, this isn't something that should throw me off. It's just kind of a normal thing of doing something which 50 weeks out of the year you might do it like a few times. You're not going to do. You just go about your normal day.
This is a bit of like a left field thing. Me and Belly have discussed this loads. The best speakers I always see at, like, it's mainly an undergrad level, because you don't really get to know professors, that well as a new PhD. You might do one day, but people who do extracurricular things are always the better speakers. People who've lived with their head in a book for 20 years very rarely can get up and present that well. People who've done competitive sports, people who've been in chess clubs, people who've been in drama, art, bands, whatever it is, people who've exposed themselves to other possible anxiety-filling things always seem to be better speakers to me. Because they're used to being a bit nervous. Like, they've done competitive football, for example. They've been in a foot team. They know what it's like to play in a final.
And also, it's kind of that thing of putting yourself on show, where at the end of the day, say if you do a piece of writing, it's the work. Essentially, it's the work, and people might judge you.
That's on show.
When you do a talk, people are judging
you as well as the work.
Yeah. So I suppose there's that element which, if you've never been exposed to it, say you're a bit of a bookworm, that can be a...
Yeah, which isn't bad, but I suppose we're saying, like, expose yourself to something. Maybe if you... You know, I don't know what that could be in your life, but you know what I'm getting at.
Yeah,
you know
if public speaking isn't necessarily your thing, try and push yourself out of kind of what you're already doing. Try experiencing something new.
Yeah.
Speak to other people. It can help, because then your public speaking is then you've shrunk it down, so instead of it being 100 and odd people, just a couple of new people who are doing something maybe you're all interested in, and you're doing this exactly what you do in front of 100, in front of a couple of new people, and then you can build. It's just easier.
No one started off the best public
as a good
speaker ever.
Yeah, of course.
Some people naturally pick it up quicker, some people don't, but everyone practices, man. It's practice. Accept the anxiety and the nerves before it's good, unless you're vomiting or something uncontrollable. Most people won't be doing that. Prepare and learn what you're doing, but don't prepare a script or learn it to a T. In my eyes, that's my advice. Learn the slides enough to present, and then speak in your language. Don't try and be someone you're not. Speak how you speak, because it'll come across more genuine. Don't try and like say stuff you would not normally say, because you're just being fake, and it'll come across as like it's a bit uneasy. That's just come across. Be you. Yeah,
I like it.
Of course you like it, because I said it.
Question 4. I can't remember where I got this one from, so apologies.
Ryan made this up.
This is actually my question.
Yeah, Ryan wants to know something, was too scared to ask, so he's roped it into Agony Aunts, man.
So, research shows that PhD students initially inspire to remain in academia and become professors, lecturers, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Right. But this disappears over time. Some reasons put forward for this is they become disillusioned with academia, and also the impossibility of the job market. What do you think is the biggest turn-off for people who start off in academia but then go, you know what, not for me?
It's multifactorial.
Yeah, I was about to say, do you think it's one reason, or do you think a lot of reasons are equally as...
A lot of reasons are equally as plausible. I don't know what your take is, Belly. I think a big thing is people become a disillusion with what the actual earning capacity is. I think they have these fake ideas around what a professor might actually earn when they're 18, 19, 20. And then when they get to 25, 26, you know, maybe they finish the PhD and they get off with a postdoc wage, and then, you know, you start looking at the grades. It's the things you look into as you get a bit older. You don't really tend, unless you're really switched on. I know I fucking wasn't at 18. You look at these things, but as you get a bit older, you're like, what? Like, if I go to industry, I can earn 20k on top of what would take me 20 years to become a top professor. Minimum, yeah. Like, so I've got to wait 20 years to get to professorship level. You know, I might be respected in this research here, I might be really passionate about it, but my actual earning capacity is 30 grand off someone who works for 5 years after they've got the doctorate and ends up on more of that. And it's so I think that's a big one. I'm not sure what your take is on the earning capacity of actual academia.
So I think one for me is it's not just limited to higher education, but also just like secondary education and that type of thing. Is like years ago, being a teacher or a lecturer or a head teacher or something used to be this job where people would do it and be like, within a community, you'd be like this well-paid, respected individual. Whereas now, because public sector pay has been hampered back so long, it's now, as you say, it's becoming to the point where we grow up, I think, especially our generation, still grow up thinking, people go work for in a uni, must be great pay. And then when you get there and you, as you say, when you learn about it, you go, oh,
just a bit underwhelming, and it's a bit like...
So people become, I think, the pay side, if you're pay orientated, I think it's one side. Because I think people, especially the way modern education works, people see it as go up ladder, get more money. That's why people do it. And then you get people who do like academia because they enjoy academia. And then I think they're very two distinct groups of people.
Yeah. I'm personally not, I'm not really money orientated, because it's a general question. That is definitely a big put off people. I think another thing that puts people off is, I think before you get into a PhD, you've got like these rose tinted glasses around the realities of what doing a PhD is. I think you maybe think it's a lot more group. I don't know why. You just think it just seems to be a bit more glamorous than it actually is.
Like you're going to be a band of researchers,
fighting the greater cause and like getting the goods done. And then at some point you realise you're sitting on your own in an office or at home or in a coffee shop with a laptop, knackered with on your 10th coffee, not really knowing what the fuck you're writing. People are pressuring you for shit, deadlines, and you know they're coming, and then it's like a never-ending stream of shit you've got to do. You get rid of one thing, and then like you think, that actually hasn't relieved me at all, because I know there's another big pile of 10, and then you're like, oh, I'm getting through this list here, but more people, someone just keeps pushing shit in the other end of the fucking list and adding stuff on, and it can become a bit never-ending. And I think people might think, I think sometimes think, and I know we've had conversations about it, like, if this is what it is,
if this is
academia,
a blueprint,
if it's this never-ending list of things I've got to be doing, and there's no like relief, maybe it's not for me. Because you got to think, people who do like a normal 9 to 5, they get to work, they work hard for whatever many hours it is, and then at 5 o'clock they can shut off and they go home and they forget about it. But because it's your project, it's your baby, it's your work, no one else is doing this by you, you never shut off, man.
No, you don't.
Even if you go on holiday away, I check my emails. I've been told by my supervisor to stop replying to emails. I was in Glastonbury and like was replying about the top, and she went like, "Can you please stop replying to me?" She went, "I didn't want to reply from you. I just sent you it, so it was there."
But like you get it's this weird kind of like obsession thing where you're always thinking about, like you'll be sat there watching telly and you go, "Oh, I could do this coding now. That'd be meaning to do. I could write this up."
I could or even just something simple as an email comes through, I've got to reply now.
I could do that now, and then I don't have to.
Because it's your baby. But if it was just a company you're working for, you're like, fuck that, I'll reply tomorrow, man.
So I think
talking to them.
That really, I think, adds to the disillusionment with academia. Like, I've become disillusioned with academia to the point where I thought it was this whole, as we were saying, like fighting a good fight thing.
Yeah.
I still think academia is for me, personally, because I like the freedom you can get with it. I also enjoy the work you can get with it. I know it's a lot of work, but I think the quality and type of work you do, like, you'd never be able to get anywhere else. Like, you can, but like the variety, what you can
more difficult to find.
Yeah, probably. Like, and then like what you can do from one project to a different project varies so much that it provides variety in that respect. Like, you're
never doing the same thing every 3 months. You change all the time.
So a PhD is different. Obviously, you're doing the same thing but then
that though changes.
And then every 6 months, if you're doing different projects, you're doing different things. Like 1 minute you could be doing machine learning in healthcare, you could be doing then machine learning in physics,
and then you're doing a review.
Yeah, so there's loads. So that's why I still think it's for me. But like one thing which I said it here, but I think is, and I spoke to a couple of lecturers about this, I won't name names, the other day, is the impossibility of the post PhD job market. I think that's a big reason people just go, you know what,
finding a postdoc, finding a lectureship, whatever you might be going for.
It's not even. It's finding a permanent job.
It's all part-time or short contracts. Yeah.
So now people just turn around and go, you know what? Instead of arsing around on 6 months contracts, I'll just go to industry.
Why would you put yourself through it?
Interview process is easier.
The job's easier.
Well, it can be.
At least it's more predictable.
Working 9 to 5, I get my money every month. I know what I'm working, and that's it. I walk in. That's my job. So I for me think that's a big one that's being underplayed.
And we know quite a few people who've just finished PhDs and ended up working, teaching modules, and each module's part-time, or each module's a short contract, and they're just sort of hopping from module to there's no actual, like, you work for us as a lectureship, but you are this title, and it's just stressful. Like, why would you put yourself through it?
Like, as you say, I probably will, because I enjoy academia. I
used to say you might at one point.
But then I suppose it gets to the point, you say, if I've been doing postdocs for 2-3 years, you can't get a mortgage.
You're like, fuck this, man. Yeah.
In the end, I'll be what? In 2-3 years from now, I'll be nearly 30. If it gets to the point, no one will give you a mortgage, you can't get this, you can't get that, you're still bouncing around looking for contract. It gets to a point where then you do start to question,
what am I doing? Yeah.
This is getting to a point where you need to, because then, especially when you start getting a bit older, it's not just about, this is getting very adulty, but it's not just about you, is it, anymore? It's like, how do you progress in life? It's not fair, because then there's a whole thing at the minute with, it's called trailing spouses, whereby, say if you have an academic spouse, or say you have a spouse whose job, like say military, say if you're a military husband, military wife, you follow them around the world or around the country, so then they sacrifice their career
for yours.
So then you have to ask yourself the question, is that fair? So then this whole kind of melting pot comes in, doesn't it, where there's so much to consider that people may in the end just go, you know what, there's too much going on now for me to kind of pursue this in essence kind of student feeling lifestyle at 30 odd. I need to have something concrete.
Most academics that look comfortable as well, they don't seem to be from this generation. They seem to be from previous ones who've been sitting in a position for 20 years.
Well, that's what I was saying with the lecturers I spoke to the other day. They were saying 10 years ago, getting a full-time position was massively easier
than now.
Then it's apparently back then, getting a postdoc was nigh on impossible. Like, it was dead hard.
But getting a full-time
getting a full-time job was dead easy.
So you might not get a postdoc off the PhD, but you might get a lectureship doing something.
Or like, say if you, like, getting a postdoc was dead hard, they're competitive, but then once you got a postdoc, getting a
lectureship was piss.
Getting a full-time job was dead easy. Whereas now, the problem you've got is everyone's got a PhD. Everyone's got publications. Everyone does talks. Everyone's got awards. Everyone's got this. Everyone's got
a Twitter profile or sort of.
Everyone's got GitHub profiles. Everyone's got like what stands out, what stands you out now. And then because there's so many people in the space, hundreds of people apply for every job role.
Yeah.
How do you narrow it down? And then that's why you get this whole culture of I can hop from postdoc to postdoc because the requirements are because less people are going to want to do those 6-month things. It's easier to get them.
I know you're right, lads, and I think another thing on top of the lack of positions, which I think, what was the original question?
What do you think is the biggest kind of reason PhD students flip from wanting to stay in academia and that to move into, say, go into industry?
During my PhD, I think you cannot start. You've just admitted, like, you've become disillusioned a little bit with it.
To a point, yeah.
That's what I mean. I don't think that can't happen to you. Like,
what it does is it opens your eyes to the reality
because you experience it. Like,
of what academia
just the nature of everything. Like, you know, you might be overweight and you get the gym and you think in 2 weeks I'll have abs. Like, a reality kicks in 10 days in where you're looking at yourself going, I don't have abs yet.
Yeah.
It takes a lot more than just turning up for 10 days to get these abs or whatever the fuck your goal is. But I've become a bit disillusioned with academia, and my main problem is with it is one of them sort of lends itself to this podcast a little bit. One of them's the bureaucracy of academia and the constant form filling, reporting. People think because you're a researcher, you spend all your time researching. Most of it's just doing bullshit, man. Like, that's literally what it is. I mean, in my opinion, that's what it is. Probably get in trouble for that. But, like, telling people what you're going to do all the time, like, to prove that you're doing so, and it's just like, just let me do it.
Like,
Stop asking me.
The thing is, I get the function and the purpose.
Oh, totally.
But I think, me again personally, is that I got told off for this one once. I think the level at which you have to demonstrate all these mad things is utterly overstated within the process, because the amount of times I've spent just writing up what I'm going to do, as you say, instead of doing it, it's
and then even think of it from, if you're a scientist who's really interested in lab work, for example, in industry, most of the ethics to work in that lab is all put in place for you. It's all done. And you just have to literally turn up and like collect your data and work on it.
Yeah.
Or if you're a data scientist
following a guideline type thing,
who wants access to a big data set in industry, it's their data, they'll just give you it. That you've got access anyway because you work there now, and you might have to go through a few things, but you'll get access. In academia, it's this constant, like, what's putting me off is this constant trail of people chasing funding, chasing access to data, chasing...
Yeah.
And it seems like 80% of the time is put into the chase, and 20% actually doing the science.
Because it's one of the things, yeah, I agree, because that's one of the main benefits of academia is they've got the money. So they can just pay for stuff. So whereas in academia...
In industry, do you mean?
Yeah, that's what,
yeah.
In industry, they've got the money so they can pay for stuff. In academia, you've got to chase the funding to be able to do your work. Because you could have a brilliant idea, but then who pays for postdocs, who pays for data, who pays for publications? Because if you don't publish, what was the point in doing the work? Because if you didn't publish, it didn't exist. Then who pays for your time, not just the postdoc's time? Then who pays for server time? Who pays for other tech that needs to be bought? Travel, conferences. Who pays for that for this project? Whereas if you work in industry, 9 times out of 10 you'll go to work for an industry with a research question, and it's all just there.
You're right, lads. And the comments I made around relating to this podcast, the other thing that's put me off a little bit is the stuffiness of academia. Everyone's a little bit too square. Everyone's a little bit too scared to say what they actually think. Everyone's scared to say what they feel, give an opinion on something that they think might be happening because they're scared to go against the grain, scared to do, and it's just like, not even that, like people, I feel like everyone's just a bit too in a shirt and tie. And I see what
you're saying.
And I'm just a relaxed guy, man, and I like to swear. I like to just say what I want. That's why I want to do this podcast, because I want to show you that, like, we're not all like super boxed up and like, and you know what? A lot of people I work with aren't this, but I've seen people that are like that. Maybe it's because I don't know them that well. Maybe it's, but it just is all a bit too prim and proper for me, and I'm not prim and proper at all.
On that,
I'm from Croxton at Liverpool. Like, that's personal. Like, maybe that's just me. But like,
no, but on that point, like, I'm the same as you. Like, I say kind of what I want, how I want it.
Yeah.
And like, I don't see the point, because if I'm not going, oh fucking hell, it's not genuine. That is kind of who I am, right? But also, I think there are so many people in academia who are just brilliant people, funny people, but then you can't be like that in the industry, and I think that takes away a lot from the potentially what can be done, because people's personalities allow things to grow more.
But branded, and like, and then you see people who become famous academics and like science educators. They're not always the most brilliant scientists. They're the most brilliant people, in the sense that they can communicate their research in a way. Like, you look at someone like, I don't know, Neil deGrasse Tyson. I
he's class him.
I love him, but like, he's not the most amazing physicist ever. He's not fucking found out to quantify fucking general theory of relativity with quantum fucking physics. You know, he's not bridged that gap, but he communicates.
He's a great
amazingly.
Science communicator.
And like, there just seems to be too many people who are a bit like lost in the work, and like, that's because they're great researchers, but it's just a bit like, where's the part? Where's the fun?
No,
you know what I mean? Like,
as
relax.
I say, to me, I'm a person who, like, for me, I couldn't work in an office where everyone was stuffy and horrible. My supervisory team are great, as I've said. Like, we all get on, we have a laugh. We have the personability of it all, right?
Same, my supervisory team are boss.
But like, if I was with certain other people in academia who I've witnessed, I'd want to pull my eyes out.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't be able to stay and do my PhD.
Same.
Because I thrive when I'm happy, and there's this, everyone can be themselves, and then you get a genuine understanding of people.
Yeah.
When you lose that, I think you lose a lot more than just the communicator, but you lose so much.
You're right, lads. So I think rounding up, I think money is something that disillusions people. I think people get involved in research and become disillusioned with the bureaucracy. I think people become disillusioned with the job prospects. And I think people sometimes, as we say, maybe it's maybe that's what's going to happen with me. I just, sometimes people's characters don't fit into this world. It's a very prim and proper world at the moment.
Oh yeah, big time.
And maybe people think I'm not. I like doing the science, I love the research, and people find the little alleys where they've got these little like utopias within it, but a lot of people never find them, and that's why they get off, because they're just like, I just have better somewhere else. It's not for me.
Brilliant.
Yeah, man.
I've got a couple left.
I'm good at answering these, me. Fucking unbelievable gear.
Have we got time for 2 more or just 1 more? Or
to you, lads. I'll be quick. I'll give 2 quick ones.
So, this one. This will be a quick one. The last one we may get a bit into
deep.
It again. Yeah.
Gonna get deep.
Question 5.
How deep can you talk? Deep. How deep can you talk? Can you go deep?
No, I don't talk from the back of my mouth. I'm higher on.
Ryan talks about that from
I'm very nasally, like. You know what I mean?
Go on, Michael Bisbane. Right. Gives your question.
I'll speak like nasally.
No, don't do that, lad.
I am struggling, right, to stay motivated, focused, and productive.
Oh, lads, horrible.
What are some tips for keeping the PhD work moving?
Fuck knows, lads. I'm fucking stalling like fuck me. Lad, if I was a car, lad, I'm on the M57 on the hard shoulder, lad, in an O2 fizzer, lad, fucking trying to get it going again.
It's so
lads.
hard to stay motivated.
We've talked about it, lads, and we I suppose there's won't find some good mates, man, that can pick you up. Like when Belly said to me, like, lads, I don't know what I'm doing. Even if I haven't got a clue what to do, I'll just say, lads, take a day off. Like, and then he'll say the same to me, like, lad, don't worry about it. Just fucking.
One thing I found is change your scenery up if you can.
Yeah.
Do it.
Change your scenery.
Like some days, if I'm feeling proper shit, I'll just be like, right, today this is like I'm not getting going here. I'll just literally go and base somewhere else. So say if I'm at home, I'll just walk down to get a coffee and take my laptop.
You don't mean walk to the kitchen, you mean like walk to the
like
coffee shop?
Yeah. So what I'll do is I'll stand up, sit down again with a coffee. No,
sometimes I roll my eyebrows.
Well, yes, like movements. Like some days, because I hot desk at a place in like a company, and you know what,
supposed to slate off the place where you can't say it.
It's not the company. It's the culture of industrial work estate.
Yeah.
How can you have people who you pay money to be like, we need you to be inspired and give us the best, and you go to work in a building that looks this fucking like yellow brick, and you turn around, the building next to it's exactly the same. And you drive out the thing and the next 100 buildings are exactly the same.
There's always a Mackey's on them.
And and there's a Starbucks in the corner which is soul destroying. And then there's a little bit in the middle where you can walk around, it's all nice. I said, how can you feel inspired in this soul-sucking area of like lack of creative? So on that point, sometimes I'll just go to a coffee shop.
And people watch. No, but that's one of the benefits you've got as a PhD student or as a researcher is unless you've got someone proper wedding you to a seat, which very rarely happens, you've got the freedom to work where you want to work. I mean, well, in our type of PhD where it's computer-based, you have maybe not as a lab researcher, but there's still days when you're going to be able to move about. That's a big one. Sometimes I work from home and it gets to that, it just be like, so then you go to the office and then that becomes like, but keep changing it. Then you go to a coffee shop, go, if it's sunny, go and sit on a field, man. Go, in Liverpool, we've got the Abercrombie Square, like that's decent. Round John Moore's Ways, you've got the museum gardens and that, like, but I'm sure wherever you are, man, there'll be somewhere. So change the scenery is a big one. I think having people who are also doing something similar to you, like a mate, a colleague who you can ask and talk to, just to vent and say, listen, my supervisor's being a prick, like, what do you reckon on this? Or like, listen, this works, bullshit, innit? Yeah, it is, innit? Yeah, well, fuck this then, innit? And then, or, I think people as well, you need a break, man. People don't, and it sounds obvious, but like...
PhDs burn themselves out. And it's not even so much PhD, just people in general burn themselves out and work to the bone.
And when I say break, like, I'm shit at this, lad. I am shit at it. But don't have a break, but then still check your email. Kit Kats, lad. Unbelievable gear, lad. Peanut butter Kit Kat chunkies, lads. Why I've got this double chin. Anyway, when I say have a break, I mean I don't mean have a day off, but still check your email, still reply to them, still do that Zoom call like you were gonna, and then but the break was like just not writing. that's not a break. Like, you still did loads. Like,
you still had your mind on the work.
Yeah, if you're having a break, switch off. And what helps me is like going somewhere. So like, I don't know if there's something you like doing, like walking up a beach or like fucking playing footy, going like organise it, go and do it. Because you cannot possibly think about your work if you're engaged in something else. Yeah. If you're having a day off to sit there, you will do some work because you're sitting there. You know what I mean?
And as you say, when you work on something, say if you're self-employed or it's your own project, so you feel married.
Yeah.
So you feel married to the thing. I think an actual tip, other than just the moving and stuff like that, this is what I found which helps me, is at the start of your week, write every single thing you've got to do down in a to-do list and tick it off. Because then what it does is sometimes what you find is if you don't write it down, because everything's swirling around, it makes it seem a lot more than what you've got to do. And I bet you
makes you feel loads when it's actually not that much.
Yeah, then when you actually write it down, you go, oh, this is dead doable.
Yeah.
And then sometimes when you find you got loads of work, you don't do anything. Because you go, what?
I'm going to get through this. Yeah.
So you're saying you panic. But if you write it down, genuinely, I've done this loads and it's helped me. You write your big to-do list. You actually say, well, that's not that much. Like, and then what you do by writing it down is you naturally create a structure of order, of like a logical way to solve all your tasks instead of it just being this whole mess of this, and this.
And I've found, Belly, when you write them down, even if you aim to, by the end of the week, get these 12 things done, sometimes you don't get to 12, but I'll bet you get to 9, 10. And then the other 2 don't do. Just move it over to the next day or to the next week, whatever. But you'll get well more done than if you randomly attacked it, because you might have only end up with 3 done.
Exactly.
So, yeah. No, in general, I don't know what the fuck you do, lads. Just fucking do whatever, man.
Just keep cracking on.
Yeah, just keep cracking on, man. I'm not a good person to ask. As I say, I'm that O2 fizz. I'm on the edge of the M57 in the hard shoulder. Hey, he's calling me. Fucking need help, man. It's me.
This question then, the last one we'll do for today, coming to a close. Oh, big sad.
Boo!
Don't worry, we'll be back next week.
I feel like a great guru, man, answering all these. The great philosopher, man. That's what I'm doing after my PhD. I'm becoming a guru,
Zeus.
Man.
Dr. fucking Zeus.
Dr. Samson, the great guru, and I'll have a little office and that you come in and you tell me your problems and I just like give you them.
You'd be like one of them psychics where they come in, you just palm read them.
$10.99 for each piece of information dispensed, man.
Dispensed them. Right, so question 6. At the start of April this year, this is more of like I've put quite a few things together.
Good,
so I noticed it, so it's something I was just going to put forward. It's just
Is this yours?
Question. So I saw a few things on it.
Okay.
So I've kind of condensed it down, then formulated a question from a few things.
Okay.
So at the start of April, there was an academic who was suspended after when they worked out the number of publications he'd done this year up until January to April. He technically published every 37 hours.
The fuck?
It's basically just, when you're just involved in shit and you're getting your stuff down.
Yeah.
So he was suspended for it, obviously because it's just gaming the system, right?
Yeah.
So this is like an extreme example of the citation game present in academia and how citations and more specifically number of publications is the measure of success and an example of how the system can be gamed. Is this the correct measure of success within academia? And if not, what are some alternatives?
It's the question. I mean, I know exactly what they're about the citation game when you're saying that person's ended up on a paper every 37 hours. So what, like, really high end, and they've earned it. Like, they become really well known. The high end professors, doctors, they have their hands in a load of different pots, and they might be getting on a paper because they literally give 30 minutes of advice,
or they corrected a paragraph.
They corrected a paragraph, or they got someone to change literally one little line of analysis, or like you should wear, they give some insight. Whether it warrants a name on a paper, I don't know, but that's like sort of the transaction. Like, I'll help you. Can I get co-author? And they end up literally, and you look at some people's like profiles on like
thousands and thousands.
Yeah, on ResearchFish,
papers.
and in 2022 alone, they'll have like 300 publications. They've done probably like 4 of them, at most 5 of them. They've not writ them all.
Well, so for those who, again, aren't familiar with research and PhD, just research and publication, academia, the order of names in a publication indicates the amount of work done.
Pretty much, yeah.
So whoever's name's at the front, that's basically the heavy lifting.
Yeah.
Second and third authors, they tend to be people who put in quite a bit of assistance to help get there.
Push the cart down here a little bit further.
The person at the end tends to be the corresponding author, so they were also quite heavily involved, and they will also answer any questions that anyone wants to get in touch with about the publication. So they play a future role as well in the publication. Then everyone in the middle, kind of going down that list, kind of played a lesser role in.
They dress the cake up a little bit, man. That's
or like so for example, if you have like say 3 or 4 people, it's just that's kind of the order it goes. So it kind of the more down the name stack you go.
You see some papers with like 12, 15 people.
I saw one the other day. I had like 30 authors on.
So
the more down you went on that 30 author list, kind of the less work they did. That's kind of the general rule of thumb too. Sometimes that it works a bit differently, but for the most part, that's generally the aim.
You could argue about it like those people who end up on hundreds of papers, they've earned it because they've done all the work to become well known, so now they deserve to get on it. So I get that argument, but for then a new researcher, they don't have all those connections to get on 20 papers a year.
Exactly.
People like me and you, we say if we publish 2 each in a year, we might be lucky to get on 1 extra as well. And then if we did get on 3, that'd be like, wow. Whoa. But how was someone publishing 3 papers meant to compete for? And then all these citations play into how much funding you get, the grants you can be awarded, positions of getting hired, getting a job role. So even if you're the best scientist ever, you've been in the game 5 years, but on average you're publishing 2 papers a year, say, and you're involved in 1 extra a year for, in one of those like advisory roles. How are you if you're putting a grant together meant to compete with someone who published 100 last year in the same area? Like, you're really not going to compete.
No.
You haven't got the firepower. You're basically an army with 10 people with machine guns going up against a nuke. You know what I mean? And like, you're just going to get nuked in the game. So the question is the other measures. Yeah, I think there should be other ways to assess how people carry out science and if they're awarded certain things.
I just don't know what they are.
I'm not sure what they are, but it depends what you mean by like how should people be assessed. Is it? Sorry, go on.
I think citations is a good one because the idea is it's kind of a self-regulating measure of whether your work's any good.
Yeah.
But I think
it's also a shit one.
Yeah,
because of what I've just said.
Because the amount of papers that get published nowadays, getting your work out there is sometimes very difficult. So even though you may have done good work, it gets lost in a sea of like how do people find it type thing. So it's kind of like it's good, but then also because everyone knows the KPI and what they need to do to succeed, everyone targets it.
So maybe the citation measure isn't a bad one, but maybe there just needs some more regulation around how easy it is to get on a paper. Maybe there's got to be like some evidence of like I did this much work, so therefore maybe the max names you can have on a paper is 8. I don't know if that in a real world would work, but like
no, maybe not. But I think the first thing you said defo works. Like potentially there needs to be a system where
provides evidence for the work you did, and if someone would say like, listen, you can't be a co-author, you didn't do. But
then that plays into
playing the peer review role. You know what I mean?
That plays into the added bureaucracy of academia.
Then it's the bureaucracy. So it's like, do you want more regulation or do you want less regulation? Do you want the citation issue fixed? But if you're talking about like measures of success and like how we value academics, some people like to write and like to bash out studies. Some people are better communicators and better lecturers, and they're still researchers, and they might be better researchers than those who manage to bash out 4 papers a year. They just don't do the writing.
Yeah.
They do other things. They do teaching. They do the research on the side. Doesn't mean they're less equipped to carry out the research. It just means that they have other things that are under the pots.
It kind of needs to be a bespoke kind of based on what your university kind of aims are. What you're given as things, what should your measure be? But then it's seen as a global thing, isn't it?
But that's not a measure no more then, is it? If it's individual, a measure is sort of not standardised. You can measure everyone.
I don't necessarily have an additional answer for that. I just thought it was quite a nice discussion point to have. No,
I agree with it. I think the citation game is problematic for that nature, that people can get on loads and you're wondering how they've got on 150 papers last year. Well, it's because they're a big name and they've had their hands in loads of pots, giving little advice, writing little paragraphs, changing a few lines of analysis. Is that fair? Probably not. what can you do about it? Probably add some more bureaucracy in, but that's another problem.
Because that's the thing. In theory, it is the best solution. Because if other people are using your work, that means your work is more viable, which means what you did was more useful, which means you're putting out better work. So it has this kind of cycle to it. But then, as you say, if you have the ability to scattergun more papers, the chance that one of them gets high citation is higher, which then basically everyone will discount all the other work you did. It's just, they did this.
And then names. People cite papers because of names.
Yeah,
so you carry out some research with 2 other people and then get 5 people giving you advice on code, whatever it is. They get their names in the paper and they're big names. I carry out another piece of research, which is just as good. I don't get the advice on it. I don't get the help. And I just publish it with me and 2 names, which aren't well known.
You'll get the less visibility.
Mine might be a better study with better findings, with the data was clean, but whatever. And Ryan's got cited 100 times more because there's more profiled names on it. And it's like, that's not scientific. No. That's biased. You know what I mean? That's biased to fuck. That's emotional bias. People clear a name because it's well known. But I do it. You've seen someone put, there's people in my research space who've published big papers and you'll cite their other papers.
Because you keep an eye out for them, don't you?
Without actually thinking, and you'll be put off another paper because they've not published before. But it could be a better study. But then it's harder. But that's another problem in academia is you see the emotional bias in people, reference them because they've align your work with them because how do we know their work's
it's all a political game, isn't it?
And it's
in some aspects.
But yeah, that's a problem with academia.
But yeah, so I think that was more of a nice just discussion point to end off on. Yeah. So I think that one requires...
We're at 1 hour 20, Belly.
Well, so we'll wrap it up there. Thank you again for listening. As we said, 10 main episodes recorded. Hopefully, another 100 odd to come. Within the next 5, definitely got guests on. Yes, defo. We just need a few more confirmation emails. Confirmation. I can't say it normally now. What accent was that? Confirmation. I don't know. That's Scottish. I think it tried to be. Confirmation emails to be sent out. So we're getting there. And then once we know the names, we'll be able to throw them out in the next episode. If you've got this far and you liked it, leave us a like. If you didn't like it, you also know where that button is. Subscribe, hit the bell, notifications, so you know where we are. We release clips as well, TikTok, YouTube, longer clips. Make sure you tune in. Next Agony Aunts, episode 15. Will be episode 15, so if you want your questions in, get them in before then so we can include them. I think that's been it, so that's it from me. Yeah, guys, I love you and leave you. Peace out, stay safe, smoke weed every day. Belters, ciao.